All right, everyone, it is interview time, and we are here with a new guest, but we are so excited. I should say, I don't know why there's a butt in there. I mean, I like a butt, but not that kind of butt. And we're so excited with Zachary Zane, author of BOYSLUT, a Memoir and Manifesto. And I love Zachary. Can we call you Zach or are we going Zachary?
Zach is fine. Zach. I think we can say Zach. We're there.
Zach. All right, Zachary Zane. I like the name though. Zachary Zane sounds good.
Right.
Zach
That's why I do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Double Z.
All right, we're gonna call you Zachary. Zachary Zane. I might say your whole name the whole time, like your full name, because it just sounds awesome. And his book is incredible. And while it is a memoir, it's also very informative, educational. You can walk away with so many different pieces on how to live life in maybe it's a slutty way, maybe it's a shameless way, which put both of us together. Hey. And that one, shameless plug. There's so many fun, wonderful pieces there. And we are going to learn all about them. And you already heard a little bit about Zachary Zane in the intro. But Zachary Zane, can you please tell us, or us and our listeners, a little bit more about how you got to where you are today in the field of sexuality?
Ooh, sure. So originally, actually, I thought I was going to get a PhD in clinical psychology. I was working at Harvard Medical Center as a smoking cessation researcher and counselor. So figuring out the best way to get people to quit smoking cigarettes. I took my GRE. I was ready to apply to grad school. I had a panic attack. I was like, for this seemingly altruistic profession, they are cutthroat, they are nasty, they steal your work. Oh. And then it's like 6 years of a PhD, 3 years of postdoc, and then you just write grants until you die. And I'm like, this actually sounds terrible. I hate this. So I started writing a little bit. I was like writing fiction at my desk, and I wrote a novel that I'm terrified to look at because I was 22 and I'm sure it's god awful. But I learned, like, in order to get like an agent and to get it sold, you had to write other things for the websites. So I wrote a piece for XO Jane, if you remember that site.
I don't know.
They would give you like $50 for you to like bare your soul. And it had this like faux feminist lens. So it would literally be like the most outrageous titles possible, where it'd be like, I got an abortion and used the umbilical cord to strangle my husband and danced on his grave. Yay, feminism. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, what?
Wow.
But I wrote a piece for them, and what they titled it was, I came out as bisexual and can't date anyone gay or straight. And what the article was about was how I really struggled to embrace my bisexuality. And then finally, once I did, I thought the world was going to be my oyster. I thought, all women would love to date me and all gay men would love to date me. And I had a rude awakening. Women would not date me. They were so afraid I was using the label as a stepping stone on the way to being, full-blown gay. And they were afraid I was going to leave them. And then gay men were just extremely condescending. They'd be like, oh, honey, I was bi too. You'll get there. And I'm like, oh, fuck you. Like, absolutely not. Then I fell in love with this bi woman, and like it was just incredible to feel so accepted, so embraced, so understood. She wasn't worried I was going to leave her for a man. I wasn't worried about appearing too effeminate or checking out a guy or like having to be someone that I'm not. So I wrote this piece, and it went viral in a way that I was not expecting. And it's because at the time there was such a dearth of bisexual content. And the bi content, and this is almost a decade ago now, and the bi content that was out was 10 things to never say to a bisexual person or 10 myths about bisexuality. It was bi content to convince gay and straight people that we exist. It wasn't actually bi content for other bi people. So after this went viral, I actually started getting work to write about bisexuality, my experience with it. And I started writing content like bi person for bi people. So like how to deal with internalized biphobia, how to date as a bi person. When can you call yourself bi? The intersection of bisexuality and polyamory. And there was also very little male bisexuality being written about at the time. So I really just became known as the bi guy. And just like blew up from that. And from that, I kind of expanded out. So I was talking about, predominantly bisexuality in the beginning, then just all queer sexuality, then male sexuality. And now just, I have the sex and relationship advice column at Men's Health. I have the non-monogamy column at Cosmo. I speak to all genders, sexualities, all ages. But it really started with the niche being bisexual and then kind of going out from there.
Love it. And you're such a gifted writer. And clearly we love your book.
Thank you.
It's great. Check out BOYSLUT, everyone. That we'll say that many times. So we want to go through with you your own personal journey. We talked a little bit about it before we started recording, a step-by-step process towards embodying your ultimate sexual self, because this is therapy, right? But can we start with the first chapters of the book, which am I a sex obsessed pervert and am I addicted to porn?
Yeah, sure. So let's start there. I have to admit, I love the titles that I came up with for each chapter. I do take a lot of pride in them. I love coming up with a good, raunchy, ridiculous title. But the idea of, so am I sex obsessed pervert? Wow, tongue twister. Is I really wanted to explain in that chapter how universal sex negativity is, and Puritan culture is, and how insidious it is. Because often I'd read these books, a lot of like queer memoirs, and it's always like a little gay boy from the South who gets kicked out of his family for being gay, grew up in a really Christian environment, and had that level of so he had a clear sexual shame and internalized homophobia. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense why you have it. I grew up with two liberal parents, like liberal Jews in Los Angeles. I had gay uncles on both sides of my family, my dad's brother, my mom's brother. I knew it was A-okay to be gay. We were a family where we'd see each other naked. It was not the end of the world. Like, nudity was okay. And still, I had such sexual shame. And so the first chapter is I'm 8 years old. I'm in therapy, and I'm struggling with imagining people naked. And this is part of kind of my OCD. This is one of my obsessions with, I have OCD. But it was kind of ruining my life. I would just imagine everyone naked, and it wasn't because I was attracted to them. It was because I thought thinking of people naked is bad. And because I tried not to do it, then I was doing it. So I'm in therapy and crying because I'm imagining my therapist naked in front of me as I'm telling him I'm imagining you naked. And he's explaining to me like nudity is not bad. Like only once you believe that will you stop having these obsessions. But yeah, so it was really important for me to explain that like essentially this book is for everyone. Yes, it's predominantly for, bisexuals, queers, faggots, alternatives, polyamorous people, kinksters. Like, yes, definitely people on the outskirts. It's more for you. But it really was to illustrate that we all have a negative relationship with sex, unless if you've worked to unlearn that, or unless if you live in like a polyamorous commune in the middle of nowhere without Wi-Fi and it's like, broken away from the rest of the world. Maybe you don't have sexual shame, but the rest of us, if you exist in this world, you do. So I really wanted to set that from the beginning to be like, okay, we all struggle with this. And here was my journey to reaching a point of embracing my sexuality and no longer being worried if I'm a sex obsessed pervert.
So did you discover you're not addicted to porn? And you're not.
So that's the first chapter. The second chapter. So porn, I mean, the reason also why I start with these things is because the book is like a memoir. It is somewhat chronological, right? So that explains that as well. And porn was something I discovered, 12, 13, which is, I think the average age people see porn now is like 11, which is horrifying.
And maybe younger now, Jesus.
Yeah, it might be younger now. Turns out I'm not addicted to porn. Who would have thought? And it's so funny because, I knew how many people struggle with porn or are worried that they are addicted to porn because of my column at Men's Health. And like the number of questions I get about being afraid that they have a porn addiction. And the thing is, porn can have a negative impact on your life. I'm not saying it doesn't, right? And I feel like, and I address this in the book, where it's sometimes, obviously conservatives and religious zealots are like, all porn is terrible, it's all exploitation, it's awful, it's blah, blah, blah. And then you have very liberals and progressives who are so afraid to admit that porn could potentially have a negative impact on your life because they know that religious zealots and conservatives are going to manipulate their words. So they're like, oh, like porn is not bad in any way, shape, or form. And I'm like, well, okay, like porn can have a negative impact on your life, and it should behoove you to analyze your relationship with porn. If you're, late to places because you're jerking off, if you're jerking off at work, if you no longer want to have sex with your wife, if you can't get hard because you're jerking off all the time. And again, there's been like a lot of studies that show like it's not necessary that porn like induces erectile dysfunction, but it can contribute to it in like various ways of being like, obviously like getting anxiety about not being good at sex, not being big enough. You get so used to having, one-on-one sex can be very different when you're with someone else. But yeah, I think we all watch porn. It is such a controversial topic. And I wanted to have a really nuanced take being like, hey, porn can be an incredible thing in your life. It's a way to, have release, to explore different fantasies, to learn new things. However, remember that it is fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
It is not real. Like this is not how real people have sex. And you don't need to feel any shame about watching porn. You're allowed to enjoy your desires. If you see that, okay, this might be interfering with my romantic relationships, doesn't mean porn is bad. Just take a step back. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, agreed. I think I say this to April sometimes. Like, I think that porn's the reason why we have a job, to help people to undo a lot of the stuff that's come with it, from the shame to the trauma to all these different ideas.
Unrealistic expectations. Yeah.
Yeah. How we should be as sexual beings or even romantic beings. And we love porn as for entertainment but not as an educator. And there is educational porn out there that's awesome. Like Tristan Taormino's work. Love all that stuff. Like, love that. And Jessica Drake has some.
Nina Hartley too.
Yeah, but a lot of where
Make Love Not Porn.
Right.
Yeah, it's
too,
still
which is just more realistic. Yeah.
Right.
It's so you can still watch it and get turned on. It can be super hot and heavy, and yet it still is is educational, informative, and trying to be as realistic as it can be.
I can get turned on from PG-13 movies sometimes.
I mean, you know my thing with Melrose Place back in the day. Okay,
exactly.
That's where I learned about my rape fantasies. So, and I was 10.
Or acts of sexual violence.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And I'm similar to you in that I grew up. I wouldn't say my whole household was liberal, because my dad certainly wasn't, but he just didn't give a fuck about me in general for the most part. So he wasn't really interfering with my sex life or dating life. But my mom was really progressive. Yet I still grew up ashamed. And I think it was more so from media and peers and the people I was starting to have sex
Teachers,
with. Or all the things, all these, like you said, if you're in a bubble, maybe on some commune, then you're fine. But the rest of us, even if you had the most progressive upbringing in your home, it doesn't mean that the outside world won't get to you. So I love all of that.
It also could be stored in your DNA from generational trauma, which there's new studies emerging all the time about how there's at least four generations of trauma that we can store, and who knows if that shows up with
Jesus.
I don't even want to look back at that, but I will. I'll go to our hypnotist. We have a great hypnotist here. She's wonderful. Okay, so because we're kind of moving in like the order of your book. Okay, so moving to the next section here. There's this "Where's my light bulb" moment experience that you're talking about, and I'm curious, what is the "Where's my light bulb" experience all about, and what happened when you finally had your light bulb experience? Is that like an aha?
Yeah, so the light bulb experience is that aha moment. And in the context I discuss it is, there have been rumors about me being gay for so long. I knew I'd loved women, so I'm like, I'm not gay. I didn't think bisexuality was real. At the time there was very little bisexual visibility. But I decided, my first week of college, and I purposely went to college 3,000 miles away from home because I think I needed to explore. And I knew that subconsciously I can't be close to my family and friends. And I didn't want rumors to get back to my temple or synagogue or whatever the fuck. But so my first week of college, I hooked up with a guy, and I had to get so drunk in order to do so. Actually, while in the middle of him blowing me, I left to go vomit twice in the middle of it. I was blacked out. I was really hammered. But the thing is, I really expected when I made out with a guy or kissed a guy that I would know instantaneously. I would have this light bulb moment where I'm like, oh my God, this is what real love is and attraction is. And every time I've hooked up with a woman, no, that wasn't real. That was fake. Now I understand what love and attraction, desire are. I'm definitely gay. Or I would hook up with a guy and be like, yeah, no, this is clearly not for me. I am not enjoying this. I'm straight. And so I just was really hoping to have a level of clarity. And that didn't happen at all. And it didn't happen for a few reasons. Number one, I was so drunk, I couldn't even be present in the moment. Number two, I'd put so much pressure on this experience that I couldn't even I couldn't even focus on whether I was enjoying it or not. I was like, does this make me gay? Does this make me straight? Am I liking this? Am I liking this? So I couldn't even I couldn't get out of my head, which was, then the point of drinking, but then I had to get so drunk in order to do it. And so, it was really disappointing. And then for 5 years, I would get hammered and hook up with guys. And at the time, I was still having sex with and dating a ton of women. They were aware of my shenanigans. And I kind of was very confused. I was very confused for a long period of time. And again, it's people sometimes ask, like, how did you not realize you were bisexual? And I'm like, there was no bisexual visibility. There was not I did not know a single out bi man. Not one. Every bi guy I knew in college came out as gay shortly after. So even though I am egocentric, I'm not delusional. You know what I mean? I'm like, I can't be the only fucking bi guy in the entire world. You know what I mean? But like, and that's why, you know, visibility really is so important, realizing that you're not alone. And obviously there are millions upon millions of bi people fucking everywhere, right? Like, but so that's why it was so challenging for me to embrace it. And eventually kind of what ended up happening, there were a few things that happened. I remember talking to my brother after college, and he was like, Zach, you know, like you know, I hooked up with a few guys in college. I think our other brother did too. Realized it wasn't for me. You know, exploring is completely normal. You've been doing this for like half a decade. Like at some point, you might not be exploring. At some point, that's like a permanent orientation, maybe. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna be married to my husband, and our 40th anniversary, I'll be like, thank you for staying with me as I explore my sexuality. Thank you for marrying me, a straight man. Like I'm like, oh God. So I got into therapy, specifically sought out an LGBTQ therapist. I kind of gave him this monologue on my first session about how I'm confused. On the second session, I started the monologue again. He goes, Zach, you know, when we say confused in LGBTQ like therapeutic setting, it actually means something. You don't seem confused. You seem very clearly bisexual. Like, is there something I'm missing right now? And I quickly responded, oh, that shit doesn't exist in men. And he responded, Zach, you're too smart to think that. Ooh. Which was such like a good ego jab too, to like, you know, critique my intellect in that way. Like in the way, like, come on, of course fucking bisexuality exists. It would be insane if it didn't exist in this world, right?
That's a good therapist right there. I like that therapist right there in that moment of just like, let me like kind of poke you a little bit to get you thinking. Yeah.
And then from that, all of a sudden I was like bisexuality became an option in a way that it was not before. And I'm actually stealing this option language from Fritz Klein, who's this very famous kind of like Kinsey-like researcher who studied bisexuality and has a book called like The Bisexual Option. So I want to give him this credit. And he actually has a kind of a much more nuanced Kinsey scale that's called the Fritz Klein Sexual Orientation Grid that kind of looks at bisexuality and sexual fluidity in a much more nuanced way, which is worth checking out if you're interested. So initially, when I started like kind of embracing bisexuality, I thought I was like bi-sexual, but hetero-romantic, which means I can fuck anyone of all genders, but I could only date and have romantic attraction towards women. And while that is a valid orientation, that was not mine. For me, it was just internalized biphobia and me not willing to embrace that I could love a man. And then the way I finally eventually had my light bulb moment, so to speak, is I was actually in Provincetown visiting my gay uncles. And Provincetown, for people who are not aware, is on the tip of Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And it is this gay liberal bubble. But it's this gay beach town. Everyone there is fucking gay. And so it's incredible when you're closeted to be there and to see all these guys holding hands with other guys making out on the street, lesbians doing the same thing too, in a way that you don't ever exist in a space where like the majority of people are same-sex couples embracing love, not afraid to kiss. I live in New York. I don't know if you just saw, but a man was murdered yesterday.
I saw that.
I didn't see that. Oh my God.
He was like voguing in the parking lot or something.
For literally voguing at a gas station. And this gay man was murdered and stabbed to death. Yeah. Like it is not safe in New York. It is not safe anywhere in the United States. Hate crimes happen all the time. So like, yes, when I hold hands with a man, I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm living in fear. Even though I'm a 6'4" dude, I've been attacked. I've been yelled at. I've been called a faggot. People tried to hit me with their cars. Like this is a real thing that happens. Everyone's like, oh, New York is so safe. I'm like, it is safer. But no, it's not so safe. It is not safe to be a queer person existing in this world anywhere in the fucking world. But that's why places like Provincetown are so special, so incredible. And you could see this in a way where people living without fear, people embracing same-sex intimacy. And while I was there, I ended up having this whirlwind 24-hour, like, I thought I was hooking up with this guy, and all of a sudden I had these like emotions, and I knew it wasn't love, but it was just like, you know, when you have those like vacation boyfriends and you kind of like allow yourself to pretend it's love because you know you're going your separate ways at the end of this. So why not just be real with each other and vulnerable, and you know it's going to end, and you kind of can have this fake but beautiful relationship. Well, I don't want to call it fake, but temporary, I'll say, relationship. So I kind of had this whirlwind experience with this man that made me realize that I have the capacity to actually love another man.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I think the perspective that you're providing is so important because, okay, the biphobia thing is real. So I used to say, and I've been in relationships with people that have vulvas, and I never identified as a lesbian, but I also said I was bi-curious, which we were corrected actually by someone on the show because I had said that I wasn't honoring being bisexual.
Wasn't it heteroflexible? That was the issue, not bi-curious.
Oh,
it was heteroflexible.
It was heteroflexible. Okay, yeah. So that was it. So
it was that heteroflexible is a privilege because you get the identity of being mostly heterosexual, but you have the ability to go, and then it makes it bi people more invisible. I think.
Okay, regardless, I still felt like I was. It's an interesting perspective, and I stopped saying heteroflexible after that. And also, I recognized for myself that this evolution of your sexuality and my orientation, yes, was experiential. And I remember when I was in relationships with particularly one woman, and in my early 20s, I remember being like, but I'm not lesbian. And it was hard for me like to wrap my head around the labeling that goes on, and that there was this fluidity that can happen inside of hooking up with people that have, you know, the similar parts to you. And I grew up in a conservative family. Unlike some folks, it wasn't really okay for me, I think, to, in my opinion, and maybe now I can ask my mom, but she knows that I had like plenty of curiosity and exploration with women now. But what I'm saying is to have it from the flip side, from your perspective, is really important because a lot of folks, I think they can go through life maybe being curious about exploring other people that maybe aren't the opposite sex. And I hate that term, but the opposite, or they're like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I think for me, I can relate to what you're speaking to because I've been in that space and for a long time where I felt like I was confused. I was like, oh, well, maybe like I remember hooking up with we were together for probably about a year, but closeted. And I remember being like, I just want a cock. I just missed the cock. And I'm like, so maybe this isn't what and then I remember hooking up with dudes later on and being like, I just miss like the feminine touch. So it's like, what's wrong with me almost was what I was going through.
One or the other.
I know, because it's so black and white to me at the time.
I have something pretty similar to that. Wait, hold on. I have a section of my book where I kind of do a Q&A where it's kind of a divergence from the rest of like the strict memoir format, but it's called "Oh, so you think you're bisexual?" in quotes, and it's about all the comments and questions I've received when I've told people that I'm bisexual, how I have responded, and how I wish I have responded.
I have one other thing I want to say to that, because I think that culturally, at least I'll speak to the United States or like the Western U.S., it is more, I'm doing air quotes, appropriate or socially common or thought to be common, acceptable for women, for vulva owners to be bi, to like want to hook up with other women. Whereas for men, it's a little more like, okay, that must make him gay. Like that still exists. That's still like a thing.
Absolutely. How many heterosexual relationships? I know I've been with so many dudes that are like, I'll have a threesome if it's with another,
but no other
dudes. And I'm like, why not?
That's a fucking double standard.
Yes.
What makes you think? Yeah, no, come on. Yeah,
it's so funny and it's so interesting when the number of people who like, okay, so I just broke up with my partner, but she and I are on good terms. It's fine. But I remember when we first started dating, I asked her like, oh, are you bi? And she's like, no, I'm not bi. And then as we started dating, she spoke about like the many women that she has dated and loved and fucked. and literally I'm like, so you're clearly bisexual. And she goes like, oh, I guess so. like in a way where like she's like, like I always saw myself kind of marrying a guy, so like it just didn't like register to me. I'm like, you were in love with this woman still. It's been like 5 years, and she's like, no, I'm definitely bisexual. That makes sense. And I've had guy friends too, where it is funny when they're like, because they're more likely to hook up with women. But like a friend of mine who I did tell him, I'm like, yeah, like most straight men like don't get drunk and fuck other guys. That's usually just not what straight men do. I'm like, that's bisexual. He goes like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But like in a way where they're doing this and it doesn't even register at times. And I think a lot of it is because this idea that bisexuality is 50-50. There's this idea that
perfect
like
50-50.
Perfect 50-50, or because you're like, oh, I see myself potentially marrying a man or a woman, whatever it is, or I want my long-term partner to be of a different gender, like, or the opposite sex, whatever the fucking word you want to use. But like, therefore I'm not bisexual, and being like, no, you still very much are bisexual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the realization, and I love that you're bringing this to the surface, to the people out there, to normalize bisexuality, right? It's an important thing. And so I had a question. I was just relating.
Who's going to ask that?
Did you find it in your book?
Oh, no, I stopped looking, but hold on. It has to be, it has to be, I know where it is in the section. Like, it has to be one of these two places. Wait, hold on. Okay, keep talking. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it. Now I'm inspired.
Well, if you can multitask, I have a question, because you did talk about therapy. And so here's the question. Sex and relationships is fucking complicated, and as is life a lot of times, and they can be difficult to sort of navigate sex and relationships. And if therapy isn't helping, what does someone do? What do you do?
Yeah, when you're like, maybe the relationship with the therapist, or all the work you've done, you're like, I'm stuck still. I'm confused. I don't understand what, like, I want to label myself as something, or maybe not. What do you think? You fire your therapist?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, actually, that would be the first thing I'd say. I actually am someone who's a fan of changing therapists once every couple of years. Mm-hmm. I feel like often, and especially you can do so sooner if you're still learning and growing with that therapist, but they have their one perspective. They have this day of you. They have their one approach. But if I remember I left my last therapist being like, hey, I feel like for the last 6 months, I've literally had the same issues. You've kind of given the same responses, and I feel very stuck right now. So I'm looking for a different approach. Mm-hmm. So if you are still struggling and you feel like you keep having the same exact conversations with your therapist in various different ways, then it, again, doesn't mean they're a bad therapist, but it just might be like, okay, they've done everything they can for you, and try to find someone else, try a different approach, try cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical therapy, whatever the millions types of therapies are,
so
right?
many of them. Yeah.
So I think, absolutely see a new therapist. And I'm someone who, really after 2 years, I tried to see a new one to be like, okay, I even if it's good, I'm like, I need a new perspective. I need this. Mm-hmm. I think it's tough. It's always good to, if you're kind of stuck in your relationships and sex or whatever it is, to kind of go back and look and see your patterns of behavior, right? Especially for someone who's struggling with relationships and everything seems to fail, and you're like, you are the common denominator, right? You are the person of what it is. I think it's always good to also seek advice from friends. The best advice I get in my life is not from my therapist. It is from my friends who know me incredibly well, who are very thoughtful, who are kind of more honest and blunt with me. And reaching out, being like, hey, I'm struggling with XYZ, whether it's my sexuality, like, what are your thoughts? Like, you know me well. And so like going out and seeking advice, of course, reading as much as humanly possible. There's so much information out there about sexuality, relationships, attachment style, non-monogamy, kinks, whatever it is. Read BOYSLUT, a Memoir and Manifesto.
Yeah,
but
you should.
Know what I mean? But like, there's just so much information out there. So it's like, okay, like learn about yourself is kind of the best thing that you can do. Yeah.
And it's endless. April, we were just recorded earlier today with someone that we both worked with as our therapist during relationship issues, and it was, we're dedicated to constantly learning, and we talk about sex and relationships as if we know everything, but we also say that we don't know everything because we have our own struggles. We've been on the show before where April and I are like, oh, I fucked up, or I'm confused now, or I'm so heartbroken I don't know what to do. So it's like being a forever student of yourself, and sometimes that means like finding different teachers to work with. And not just talk therapy all the time. Yeah. Sometimes talk therapy can be... I love talk therapy because it's so easy for me, because I could just go blah, 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 and I can do that all day. But it's like, that's not necessarily always going to help you get to another level or the next phase. Not that you need to be like gaming and trying to get to level 16. And it is important. And I've had some really great talk therapists. And I get the tools, but then I will hit the time of like, I think all our work here is done, and that's totally fine. Okay, so it looks like he found it. Okay, what? Tell us more.
So I found it, and this was now in reference to kind of April, what you were saying about how like, oh, I'm with a woman and I sometimes miss dick, or I'm with a man and I miss a feminine touch, and so I'm not sure exactly what this means. Does this mean I'm bisexual? Does it mean I'm not liking it? Whatever it is. So this is, in the chapter where I'm answering the questions that people continuously ask of me and also breaking them down a little bit. So a common question I get is, are you equally attracted to men and women? And here's my response. So first and foremost, this question excludes non-binary people. The correct way to ask this question is, are you equally attracted to all genders? The short answer is, I don't know. The long answer is, there's so much that goes into attraction that it's challenging to quantify and parse out. Compared to other bi and pan people I know, I seem to be more equally attracted to all genders, at least if you're looking at my body count, which I don't recommend. While I really don't have a preference for a specific gender, I can tell you that regardless of gender, I know what I'm attracted to. I like them thick, whether that be your breasts, your ass, your dick, or your arms. Yes, I know my attractions are a tad bit basic. However, when I sleep with a ton of men, I notice that I miss sleeping with women. And when I'm sleeping with lots of women, I miss men. When I haven't slept with trans or non-binary people, I miss them. And when I haven't boned a goth, self-proclaimed bimbo or short king, I miss them too. Essentially, I'm missing everyone all the time. I don't think about this question often because I don't glean anything from the answer. Let's say I am slightly more attracted to women than men. So what? The only pertinent thing is if I find you attractive. It doesn't matter if I'm typically attracted to another gender more. What matters is if I want to jump your bones here and now. So then I say how I've responded to this question. I'm pretty 50-50, though sometimes I find myself more attracted to men and other times more attracted to women. How I wish I responded, I'm not sure, but what I do know is I want to fuck you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I love that. I really do.
I have a question from what you just shared, because you were saying, bisexual pan, and you're saying you actually can be attracted to all genders. And so to you, what is the difference between being bisexual and pan?
Oh, I talk about this kind of a lot in the book, actually, because I think there's a lot of confusion even among bi and pan people. Mm-hmm. So I'm bisexual and I'm attracted to people of all genders. To me, bisexuality does not perpetuate a gender binary. It is not exclusive of trans or non-binary people. I think there was this idea that because bi meant two, it meant both genders, men and women.
Hence
and I'm
my opposite sex. I was being cheeky, but yes, absolutely.
And it's so clear when we had the word bisexual, we didn't have the nuanced understanding of gender that we do now. The people who came up with bisexual were not like, but fuck non-binary people, we're not including them. It was just like this is the word that we had. And so for me, I really resonate with this word. I identify as opposed to pan because everyone knows what that means. What bi means as a word versus I write for Men's Health. I have a lot of guys in their 50s and 60s who read my work, who search through me through Googling bisexual. They don't even know what the word pansexual means. They would not be able to find my work. The word bisexual kind of has this rich legacy, the LGBT community, Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, these are bi activists. I want to honor them. And so if you want to identify as pan, identify however you see fit. But I think this is just a word that we can rally behind. It is an umbrella term. It is an inclusive term. It's a word that people mean. And I don't necessarily know if we need 10 million, there's ambisexual, pansexual, polysexual, sexually fluid, sexually and so for me, it's okay, I want to have a word that everyone knows and means, and it's very all encompassing for me.
Yeah, when it's up to you to decide what works for you.
When I think of pansexual, I think of the energy, right? That's what I think. You're attracted to energy. That's what I always consider pansexual. Am I wrong?
So again, there are different definitions. Now kind of what's happening is bisexuality means you're attracted to people because of gender. Okay. Versus pansexuality means you're attracted to people regardless of gender.
That's how I feel about my sexuality. I feel like it doesn't matter what you're rocking between your legs.
No. And for me, I'm attracted to it. I'm attracted to masculinity. I'm attracted to femininity. I'm attracted to androgyny. I'm attracted to all body parts. So it's not a lack of attraction. It's not that I don't care. It's that I actually love all of it. So that in that way, bisexuality would make more sense as opposed to pansexuality wouldn't actually make sense for me. Yeah.
I love hearing all these different perspectives here or ways of approaching this, because ultimately we get to decide. No one else gets to decide what my orientation is. You don't get to tell me you're this because you did this. I get to decide that for myself. And yes, I will abide by consent. Doesn't mean I get to touch whoever I want to, but I get to decide what label I want to take on. Like when my mom decided she was going to start dating women I think she was like 60, she didn't want a label. So she had no label. She's just dating women now.
Because labels are for food.
Yeah, labels. Yeah, that's in our book. Labels are for food. And then my mom then was like, okay, I'm bisexual. And it was queer before bisexual. And it was queer. And then it was bisexual. And now I think she's just kind of hanging out with no label again. And that's awesome because, good for her. And that's up to her to decide. And I think more people not should, but could embrace that more, especially if you feel like your sexuality is more fluid. Not everyone is moving through sexuality in a really, we're all fluid in some way, but like maybe your orientation is not shifting a lot. I identify as like annoyingly, painfully straight, and have attraction to women, but when it comes to touching them, I'm like, feels like I'm 16 again and hooking up with a guy I'm not into. And they could be like drop dead gorgeous and dominant because I'm into dominant submission stuff. And still, I'm like, what the fuck? It'd be so awesome. Because we're like, yeah, anyways, that's just me. So I want to bring forward though, to another part of your book.
Let's go. Let's keep moving along here.
We can't help but ask about Don't Be Gay, Just Shove It Up Your Ass.
Great title.
And a great title. And the next one's also great. A Peg for Every Hole. Please elaborate.
Fabulous. Also fabulous. So those are like starting to get into my kink chapters, right? So Don't Be Gay, Just Shove It Up Your Ass is about how I fell in love with anal play. And the irony was that it was my girlfriend was the person who got me to fall in love with anal. And I already was out as bi at this point. And I think I'd bottomed once in my life with a guy who I trusted. We were dating, worked in the same office together. And like, I had a terrible experience doing it. If you've never bottomed before and the only experience you have is like shit coming out of your ass, you just think you're shitting the entire time. That's what it feels like. And so I kept on being like, am I shitting on you? And he's like, no, you're fine. I'm like, I really think I'm shitting. I'm finally around like the 6th time. He's like, if you shit, you shit. Please stop asking if you're shitting on me.
You're fine. You're fine.
And I'm like, fine. I was clenching for dear life, not breathing. Definitely did not use enough lube. After we had sex, like I went to wipe and it was just like all blood. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, you know what? Bottoming's not for me. There's enough gay bottoms out there that I'm doing a service by being a proper top. But then when I dated this woman and she was so excited to do butt stuff on me, and I told her my experience, and she's like, well, you did everything wrong. Like you literally did absolutely everything wrong. Like, I really want you to do this. This is like something that really turns me on. And I really think you'd love it and enjoy it. And so she kind of told me what I need to do. She's like, watch porn, make sure you're aroused, relax, breathe, use a ton of lube. For some reason, what I ended up doing was going in the shower and using conditioner, which is, again, not good. I'm trying to not fall over while watching, I'm like contorting like a pretzel, trying to not fall over in the shower.
Conditioner to masturbate?
You conditioning?
No, in my asshole. It's like it's lube in my asshole.
I've never heard of that.
Don't do that because it's not a thing. Don't do it. I don't know why.
Don't do it.
And
This is why everyone needs Uber lube. Uber lube.
No conditioner.
Yeah.
It's literally why. And I told her what happened. She's like, you didn't do anything right again. Like, what the fuck? Like, I literally told you what to do. You did not do it right. She was like, Zach, I'm going to finger your asshole. And I'm like, okay, since I'm such an amazing boyfriend, yes. And so she did. I fucking love it. She was blowing me while fingering my asshole. It was amazing, life-changing. I came my face off and then became obsessed with it. But then also
I like this person. Can I just say I really like
she's
her.
Great. I'm trying to remember what's her fake name in the book. I think Jenny is her fake name. I always sometimes in interviews I've like said the real name. I'm like, can you believe that? Sorry, my bad. I forgot what the fake name is. But also the larger context of the book is how anal play on men is not specifically gay, right? Like we have a prostate, it feels good. If you want a man to fuck you in the ass, yes, that is very gay. But if you're just enjoying, the actual pleasure of it, and a lot of it's talking about how we need to expand our definition of kind of like heterosexuality and masculinity in a way, because right now we have such a limited definition of what it means to be a man, and anything outside of that is like queer or non-binary, in a way where I'm like, I actually think we're doing a disservice. We're not allowing like men to explore. And since we know gender is a construct, then it means like, okay, then we can expand what masculinity is. But because men are so afraid of being perceived of as gay or effeminate, they don't engage in anal play. They don't dress the way that they want to dress. And I actually think there would be less homophobia if we allowed straight men to be more effeminate, to explore these things in a way where we don't immediately call them gay. So it's actually being like me talking about how we need to expand masculinity, We need to be supportive of everyone and I'll allow them to explore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, when Pure Pleasure, now it's just online, but when I started my career in the sex toy industry and worked at Pure Pleasure,
the brick and mortar,
I remember my favorite customers were a couple when it was like a dude and his partner that was a woman, usually shopping for a dildo that she could peg him with. And I'd be like, and they would kind of be timid at first. And then there were certain couples that would come back for bigger dildos later, like a few months later. And I was like, how'd it go? Yeah. I love that. And I just thought it was so fucking badass. And that's the thing. And that was 2008, 2009. Mm. So you'd think that we'd be so much further, that we've taken a step, a huge leap forward instead of tiny steps. And I think that perhaps reframing just that age-old patriarchal establishment of you, if you get anything in your butt, you're gay. It's like, no.
We were just talking about this. We recorded a podcast with Charlie Glickman earlier, and it's on prostates and buttholes is the title. And we were just talking about this. The behavior does not determine your orientation.
Exactly.
It is like you're deciding. It's about who you're attracted to, and again, you decide it. But you do a thing. It doesn't make you a thing.
Yeah.
Of course, like abiding by consent. But there's other ideas. Like what he had a funny example of, like, I think it was with pizza or something. Like, I don't know. He had an interesting example. Listen to that episode if you want to hear more than that. But that's what you're saying too. It's like, you know, I'm doing this thing. This doesn't make me a certain way. I just discovered this is pleasure and I like it in this way. And I also have a prostate and ass and I might be a man. And it feels
maybe
good.
I like my partner who's a woman to peg me.
Plenty of straight dudes like to be pegged.
I just had this conversation with a bunch of straight dudes the other day, and they're like, no. I was like, do you know what pegging is? They're like, what do you mean pegging? And I was like telling them, and they're like, that would make me gay. And I was like, no, it doesn't. I know the weed industry, the cannabis industry, sometimes in California. I'm like, bros, you got to stop broing out so much.
Too much bro.
We got to get less testosterone here, and let's just give you some information.
And it's fine if you say you're not into it. That's cool. You don't do it. That's cool.
Right.
That doesn't mean if someone else does
I
it.
feel like they'll shut themselves off from trying it because they're afraid.
You're missing out. I heard there's a really magical button called
prostate. Most straight men do,
yeah.
Right. So that was good tangent because I appreciate all that. So here's another one for you, Zach.
From your book.
From your book. Once a cheater, always polyamorous. I think I get it, but please tell me more.
Sure. So that chapter, I have two chapters. That's a two-parter on that one because there was too much to discuss there. But yeah, so I've been polyamorous for about a decade as well. I think it really did coincide with me embracing my bisexuality. There is a big intersection for me personally. And I don't want to, of course, I say that it's like, no, not all bi people are poly, but I am. Yes, I am bi and poly, right? And yeah, I think a lot of what those chapters were about was figuring out what the best relationship style is for you. You know, I think we have this idea that relationships are, especially monogamous relationships, have to look this one way to be successful. And if you're able to step off that relationship escalator, if you no longer define a relationship success by longevity, you know what I mean? There's so many people, and I think about my parents' age, who it's like they have hated their spouses for forever. And they've been together for 40, 50 years, and one dies, and they consider their relationship a success because they've remained married for 50 years. And I'm like, this sounds like a complete failure to me. This sounds like like you were miserable for 50 years. But in their minds, nope, we stayed together through thick and thin, and I stood by my word, and therefore this was a successful relationship. I'm like, what a sad life you live.
That's my mother. I swear. It's so sad.
It's just like, that is like, again, I'm not trying to say so in a condescending, pedantic way, but I mean, like, that is just sad. And so what these chapters I do is try to be, even within monogamy, being like, these are the various ways that you can have a different type of relationship and how you can build your own relationship with someone else and how it can be, you know, non-monogamous, poly, open. Even if you are monogamous, how it can be maybe more egalitarian if you're a man and a woman dating in a way that is more beneficial to you, in a way that's more, that you feel more love with each other. Or you can have a relationship where sex is not the glue that holds it together, right? And I talk about that in the book too, where someone as highly sexual as me, and I love having sex with my partners, but sometimes that sex kind of, like, for me, often sex is about the newness, the novelty, the excitement, the kink. And when I love someone, it's like, oh, I love you. Like, I don't want to have sex with you. I love you. You're my partner. You know what I mean? And being like, even someone like me who's so highly sexual and loves sex, but maybe doesn't want to have so much sex with my primary partner, that doesn't mean anything's wrong with our relationship. Doesn't mean I necessarily have intimacy issues or avoidance issues. It just means like, okay, how can I find a relationship where we still have strong intimacy together and we love each other and we support each other and we respect each other and we feel, loved, but sex isn't the glue. So how's that relationship going to work? So these chapters were really kind of showing you what the options can be and encouraging you to discover what your unique relationship orientation is, and then kind of giving you the tools to go out and find it.
I love that what you just said about the because I think that's for some people like, wait. If we're having sex, we're supposed to love each other, right? Or like the person I love, I should want to fuck all the time. And like we see this in long-term monogamous relationships, less phase ends and all of a sudden there's less sex. This isn't all of them.
Yeah.
But this is common and common.
Most of them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like you're the 20 years, your sex life will change and your body will change. It's just inevitable. Don't try to hold on to it. But we look at that as like, that's normal though. But like what wouldn't be normal, air quotes, would be, okay, and not everyone's poly, right? But for a poly person, like, okay, here's my partner who I love, who I have sex with, but I'm actually more interested in having sex with other people where there isn't that like deep love, maybe it's like caring or caretaking for kind of thing. And you're saying like in your experience, like that's a part of your operating system, and that there's nothing unusual about that.
And that's me. And God, it's so tough. I've gotten a lot of flack for this chapter and being like, you are encouraging emotional avoidance and emotional, like people with attachment issues or people who have sexual trauma, and you're enabling them to not have sex with their partner and not working on it. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, it absolutely could be that. And that's the reason why they don't want to have sex with their partner, because they have emotional trauma or intimacy issues, whatever it is. And of course, you should work on that as well. But I think some people are hardwired differently. You know what I mean? Sex is different for different people. And also sex wanes over time. So actually, if your relationship is solely based off of sex, and that's the glue that holds you together, you actually might be in trouble 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line when that starts fading a little bit. But yeah, I got a lot of flack for that. And I was like, no, I'm not trying to enable emotionally avoidant people or people with attachment issues. I'm just trying to be like, hey, you might have a different relationship with sex. And if you do, that's okay. And how can you have love and intimacy with your partner if sex might not be the most important thing or end all be all?
Yeah. Haters gonna hate.
Haters gonna hate.
Always haters gonna hate.
And I won't name names or give details, but actually working with a client who has a similar experience as you, but as a partner with someone where sex isn't the main thing that they want to share with their primary, and that their partner wants to share it with some other people. So this has been really helpful for me because I'm going to meet with them sometimes too. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So as we wrap up, if you could give your top tip for embracing your inner empowered sluttery, what would it be? It could be two tips.
Tips. I think what it is exploring and learning what you like, and then learning. I guess three parts to this. So number one, learn what you like, explore without judgment or shame, learn how to ask for what you like and without shame. And then third, learn how to accept rejection gracefully. Right. So I think it's like, if you can get in a place where you feel comfortable asking, like knowing what you want, asking for it, you're shocked by how often, if you ask for something, you're actually able to get it, if you do so in a kind way. Obviously, if we're going up to a random stranger asking them to fuck, no, I mean, you have to have some rapport, some relationship here. But a lot of people are down to be explorative. Down to explore. And then, I think rejection is kind of the last important component of this. And I actually have a whole chapter of rejection in the book too.
And how to take on rejection, or
how to both handle rejection, how to reject other people. Both are very important.
Both very important. Yeah.
Both very important. And being like, if you're going to be a slut, you're going to get rejected. You know what I mean? And that is okay. And if that is soul crushing, that's going to negatively impact your mental health. The same way, if you're a slut, or at least for me, I still sometimes struggle rejecting people. I'm fine with getting rejected, but rejecting other people I really struggle with. And a lot of people get very angry or upset when I reject them, especially when your moniker is the boy slut and you talk about having sex with everyone, and then you don't have sex with this one person. They're like, what the fuck? But you fuck everyone. I'm like, well, I don't actually have sex with everyone. You know that, right?
Slut does not mean you fuck everyone. It's maybe just more than one person.
No, I still do have standards, and I'm not gonna have sex with you just because you asked me. Although if you're really hot, I probably would. But so And with rejecting people, I've gotten chewed out. People have gotten so mad and so angry at me. Or if like we hooked up once and it was fine, I didn't want to date with them again. They'd be like, you used me for sex. And I'm like, well, we hooked up and I didn't enjoy it. Like, what? So now I have to marry you? Like I don't understand. Like now we're together for forever. So I think, that's the last component, is learning how to accept rejection gracefully and being honest and direct when rejecting other people, letting them feel their emotions, because often people get upset, and then continuing on your merry way here.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like with those tips, those 3, and maybe not the 4, with rejection, I think that's almost a separate practice.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. No,
but I value that, because I struggle with rejection in general in life. Even if I don't get I don't like what in sales, with my company, with Hot Octopus, I'll like get a rejection talking about how the penis toys, they didn't sell in the store, and I feel like it's a rejection. I feel like my tail goes between my legs, and I just start to be like, whoa, and it's so hard. And it's parallel, because it happens to me in my. I've had a lot of compliant sex because of that. Now I'm more aware, but I have had, because not being able to reject people and being rejected on the same end has been really difficult in my journey in life, whether it's like sex or friendship or life, you're anything that's happening.
You're a caretaker of people's emotions.
Yeah.
So you want everyone to feel good. You don't want to hurt people. You don't want to disappoint people. And that's its own level of work, because we're always going to be disappointing people.
I'm struggling. That is my therapy. That is the bulk of my therapy, is being like, why do I feel so responsible for other people's emotions?
Why?
And
yeah. Where does that come from, Zachary?
And you can't take it on. Oh, it's childhood. Okay,
I know.
We know about this.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God, we're probably all in the same therapy. Let's go.
I know. I mean, I always was a pleaser. Also, though, setting the rejection piece aside, I just wanted to highlight that practicing, I think, would probably be the best way for the top tips. Those those 3 pieces. Practicing, I know that it gets easier the more you speak to your own needs. The more you practice,
it's a muscle you flex. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that's like a great way. Also, tapping into your own pleasure, learning about your own body, not expecting any partners to bring you your pleasure. You have to be able to know what you're into to guide folks that you're hooking up with or that you're in long-term partnerships with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to highlight that.
I love sluttery.
I love sluttery too. And slut is not a bad word in my dictionary, but neither is fuck or cock or shit or damn.
Or balls.
Or balls. So that all said, I really enjoyed speaking with you. I know that Amy did too. This was so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. You're a badass. You're a badass boy slut. So how can people find you, your book, all the things? Sure. I know you've been on a lot of podcasts. We adore you. So also your Fun Factory dildo.
Oh yeah. I have to do a plug. I have literally a Fun Factory dildo that is a dildo in bisexual flag colors. And it is a smaller dildo. It has less than 5 inches of insertable length. So it's definitely good for beginners. If you are a guy who wants to try pegging, this is also compatible with a harness. It is a suction too. It's a great beginning dildo. And it's a way to show your bi pride, but that's on Fun Factory. And you can actually buy the dildo or package it while buying the book and you get a discount.
What's the dildo name?
Oh, it's called the Bi Amor.
Okay, buy a more.
Do you have a special discount code for it that people get, or how do they?
I do not. I could probably ask Fun Factory for one.
Oh, they just go to the website to see.
Yeah, just go to the website.
Okay, cool. .us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that. Also, so when you go to Google or Amazon for BOYSLUT, you have to do it as one word. It is one word, and and that's on purpose, because I would have gotten fucked if it was 2 words, because slut is a bad word. So I would have gotten dinged and not come up on Amazon. So we actually had to do it as one word, because that doesn't like register the same way. But people be like, I can't find your book, but I know it's everywhere. And I'm like, it's one word. So that's the issue. But yeah, so BOYSLUT, it's on Amazon. It's at anywhere books are sold. And then, honestly, the best way to follow me is on Instagram, Zachary Zane _ the _ at the end. And then my website is zacharyzane.com, where you can follow, be up to date with the things that I'm up to and learn more about me.
And you're Zach with a CH, not a CK, right?
Yeah, ZACHARY ZANE _
All right.
And you still have your column with Men's Health.
Yeah. So 2 more. Yeah, I should plug everything, really. Okay. So I also write Sexplain It, which is the sex and relationship advice column at Men's Health. That is a weekly column. And yeah, you can write in for your questions and I'll answer them. I also just recently got a non-monogamy column at Cosmo, which is monthly.
Awesome.
And then last but certainly not least, I have a digital zine on Substack called BOYSLUT, which is either great branding or very confusing. But that is different than the book. This is actually just, I publish nonfiction erotica. So sex stories that have happened to real people. And I'm letting you know now, it is extremely raunchy. It is extremely graphic. I write most of the stories, but I also have contributors. So once a month, someone comes in with their wild sex story and I write about it. And so it's erotic. It's fun. People love to tell me exactly when they came while reading it, which I appreciate. And there's always like a fun, I try to do something with like a larger overarching narrative too. So it's like something I learned about myself, something that speaks to the intersection of like tech and sex or something different and unique. So it's not just smut. There is like some cool learning aspects to it as well. And I am telling a story, but it is extremely raunchy. So yeah, that's BOYSLUT and that's on my Substack. And if you Google BOYSLUT, one word, my book will come up, the Substack will come up, I will come up. That's the way to kind of find all my stuff there.
And for clarity, I know everyone got it, but BOYSLUT isn't just for boys. Or it's for anyone over 18, I'm assuming, but anyone.
Yes, over 18, I think is good. I think that's a good.
You can say that, but I'm going to say I think some, bisexual, bi-curious folks that are 16 probably could benefit from it. It's not going to ruin their lives, but that's just me. But you probably can't say that.
Someone asked me recently, like being like, hey, I'm a teacher. I have like some kids who are gay, bi, 16, 17. And like, what do you think? Is it appropriate for them? And I said, this is a book I wish I had when I was 16.
Yeah.
That said, there is a lot of raunchy content in here. There's a lot of stuff in here that you might want them reading.
The things they're hearing on the playground and watching porn, they're fucking fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine. But I'm like, you should be a teacher and read it yourself and decide. Like maybe that's what you should do if you're a mom, like reading. Yeah. I had a mom who came to one of my readings with their daughters who were like 15, and it was actually so beautiful. In the way that like she was clearly supporting her daughters, 15, 16, I guess the age. They had some questions. They had recently out as bisexual, but she wanted to be there because I am a raunchy, more explicit. You didn't even actually get that scope in this, but usually I am. And I was like, what a great fucking mom. Mm-hmm. What a great way to be there and to frame it the way she wants to frame it and to buy the book and read it with their daughters.
Yeah, I don't think I think that you also are educational because like the raunchy thing to me, I don't receive that. Granted, I'm sure there's some excerpts that could be maybe a little bit more taboo or wild. However, I think the kink
chapters,
yes, and that's okay. You could just rip those pages out if you have a 15. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. I don't want to.
You could.
But it just like it doesn't make kids do it more. I'm sorry, like kids read something about a kink scene, not kids, I'm talking about a 12-year-old, let's say like a 16 or 17-year-old. They read a kink scene in a book or they see it in porn. It does not make them want to like necessarily go out there and do the thing. They might be turned on, it might be spank bank, but it's not like, oh no, I have to do that. That's not like a guaranteed fact that they will do it if they read it or see it. So I know you know this, but like, society still thinks so.
No, it's good. It's good to tell listeners here.
They're going to be okay.
Your book is just intelligent and beautiful and necessary. So thank you, Zachary Zane, for just creating this beautiful book and for your columns that are now available everywhere. Check out all of Zachary's offerings or Zach's offerings. And yes, to our listeners out there, we love you so much. Remember, the reason this is free to you is because of our carefully chosen ad people, their products, their services, anything that we hand select. Amy and I do really choose carefully. So buy the stuff that we have on our ads. Don't just skip over. It's usually really at a good deal. And the other piece is we're here every Tuesday, free for you. And if you rate us on iTunes or Spotify, just do both. Yeah, if you can. If you have time, just do both. Actually, they don't even let you write anything on Spotify. So
it's not easy. Just
listen to it for about 30 to 60 minutes and just give us 5 stars. It helps more people out there find folks like Zachary Zane and all of the experts, doctors, sex educators, and et al. That's for you, Zachary, because I know that you're an author. So et al. is and more, right? So it helps people find these folks so they can help themselves have more amazing sex. All right, y'all. That's all I have for you. And that's all Amy has. And Zachary, he has more. I'm sure he's
read a whole book coming out.
Yes.
All right. We love you all. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Take care.
Ciao for now.